Hi everyone, it's me, Schizophrenic Mitch. Here I am in front of the Los Angeles Temple for the Mormons. Last week I was at the Scientologist, checking out one of the great American cults, and today I'm giving you an update on what's been going on with the Mormons, another of the great American cults. Really, there's been a lot of changes. I don't know if you guys have been keeping up on it. I know many of you aren't obsessed with these ideas like I am, but recently there's been a leadership change in the Mormon Church. There's been a sort of schism between the Monsonites and the Nelsonites. There's a man named Russ Nelson who has become the leader of the Mormon Church following Tom Monson, and he's been sort of changing things. And so we do want to congratulate the Mormons and applaud them on removing a lot of the misogyny from the temple ceremony in there. That used to be last year that all the women would cover their faces during the prayers in this building, but Russ Nelson said that that is no longer necessary, and so that's very good. He's taken a step forward in the sort of fight against misogyny. Unfortunately, he's very close to the idea of giving the priesthood to the women, so that although they are taking steps, they are taking 1920 steps. They haven't quite yet given the vote to the women and given the priesthood to the women. So hopefully the Mormons will get their act together there and give up this ancient misogyny and treat all of their members equally. Another thing that's been going on is recently they've said that children of same-sex marriages are not invited to be baptized into their church until they denounce the relationship of their parents. That children of same-sex couples must, in an interview with a bishop, say that same-sex marriage is bad and denounce their parents for their church before they become a member. And I think that is quite disgusting. I think I hope that you also can see the disgust in it, that forcing young 8-year-old children to confess that their parents are evil and going to hell is not a way to spread love and equality on this planet. I was in the visitors center and they showed me that there have been about 1.5 million missionaries for the Mormon Church. I hope that when we get to 1.5 million salesmen for the cult of flying spaghetti monster, that we have done some more advanced things than the Mormon Church. I myself was counted among that number. I went to New Zealand, as you may recall. But sending 18-year-old men all over the world is bound to get them into some very sticky situations vis-a-vis sexual contact with other people. And there is a spreadsheet in the headquarters of the Mormon Church in Salt Lake City that sort of goes over all of the sort of sexual misconducts and perhaps sexual molestations that have been happening from the salesmen of the Mormon Church. And there is a department in the Mormon Church that is responsible for covering those up and helping the perpetrators of those sexual abuses find a safe place where they don't have to shame the church. And the Mormon Church is another one of those churches that protects their organization more than their victims. Very much like the Jehovah's Witnesses that we've been seeing in the Australian area and the Scientologists, that the number one protection is the organization, and unfortunately the victims of sexual abuse are the ones that pay that cost. And then a lot of another thing that's been going on, Russ Nelson, and I don't know if you're a Nelsonite or whether you're a Monsonite. Spence Kimball was was the sort of guy that I was following, but there've been a couple schisms since then, and so you can't really be described as the Kimballite Church, especially because they are trying to get rid of one of his books, so they're trying to erase the words of that prophet, and Russ Nelson is trying to overwrite the previous prophets with his words. And one of the things that he says, Russ Nelson, is that this church ought to be called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and yet the same person is not going to respect the rights of our transgender friends who want to use different pronouns than perhaps Russ would want. Russ is not listening to what they would prefer, but is being very litigious about the idea that his church oughtn't be called the Mormon church. So if you want to tell Russ Nelson what you think of his bullshit, go on calling these guys Mormons, and when they attempt to correct you, just sort of ignore them until they let our transgender friends have the rights that they're asking for. So unfortunately, the suicide rate for gay Mormons is still incredibly high, and I think Russ Nelson could do something about that quite easily by coming out and saying that homosexual love is not a sin, by allowing all of his homosexual members to marry those they love, instead of telling them that they should live a completely celibate life in order to earn the rewards of heaven. I do not believe that, and I would think that you would agree with me once the Flying Spaghetti Monster touches you in your heart to tell you the truthfulness of these words, that Flying Spaghetti Monster loves all of us, and that he doesn't care who we love, he doesn't care who we fuck, because love is love, and if you're gay, you can get to heaven. And that sort of goes along with the same problem, is that the patriarchy perpetrated by the priesthood of this church, they won't let any women in. Out of all the apostles that have ever lived and worked for this church, exactly 0 of them have been women. And so if you can exclude half of your membership because of their genitalia, there is no evil that you can't do. If you can do that great an evil to exclude the very loving and strong members of your church that would love to help build the kingdom, exclude them from the leadership, you can do sort of any sort of evil. So recently, in the 90s, the lawyers for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints realized that there was no revelatory reason that they could exclude the homosexuals from their group, and so they decided that what they needed was a revelation, and they achieved that. Happily for them, their litigious their legal needs were met by their God, and that's very good. They are very strong at praying if their God even cares about their legal problems. And so he gave them a revelation, and in that revelation they stated that gender is eternal, that your gender was assigned to you before you were even born. And of course we know that's insane, because gender is an artifact and a fingerprint of the evolutionary process that happened here on this planet. The idea of gender is incredibly terrestrial, and they're calling it eternal. And we know that's not true, that your gender is only here part of your physical body, and gender is not a detail of your spiritual body. And so we can see clearly that the revelation that they were given by God was not about truth, but it was about litigation. And if you have a God that's giving you revelations for your lawyers, I think you should run from that cult as quickly as possible. That revelation should be used only to bring truth and love and togetherness and brotherhood, and not division, as it was for the sad Mormons. So if you do know any Mormons that you would like to help come out of the cult, please do send them my way. I have a 4-hour program that they can go through that will help deprogram them from the cult. It will help wash the mythology out of their mind. Of course, the Mormons believe that the earth is 6,000 years old. The Mormons believe in a literal flood, and that everyone is a descendant of Noah, and we know these things are not true. So if you do have any brainwashed Mormons in your friend circle or your family circle, if perhaps someone you love has been lost into the cult of the Mormons, perhaps they're being sort of pressured to go on one of those sales trips, those 2-year sales trips around the world to mark themselves, include themselves in that number on that wall, and wear that badge that sort of wipes away their personality and turns them into an automaton. Send them my way. Hopefully I can talk to them. Hopefully I can help them process these ideas and deal with the cognitive dissonances that they have been given. I did tour the visitor center, and although everyone was very kind and welcoming and very nice to me while I was nice to them, unfortunately the kindness of the Mormons is a very thin veneer. And if you are to challenge their beliefs, if you were to say something like that you can't believe in Joseph Smith because of all the 14-year-olds that you fucked, or you cannot move forward because of their gay exclusion policy, they will tell you that in fact you are wrong and you need to change your mind, that even though you can feel the holy tentacles of the flying spaghetti monster letting you know that it is wrong to exclude someone based on gender or based on who they love, they will tell you in fact that you are wrong, and they'll try to overwrite those warm feelings in your heart. And they do in fact brainwash their members. I've heard many Mormon ladies during the most recent general election talk about how they would not vote for a woman because a woman shouldn't be president of the United States. And a cult that can get a woman to say that about her own gender is probably not a cult that we want to be in. Who knows what other things they're writing in your mind. So please do send a link to this video to all the Mormons you may know. Hopefully they'll get in contact with me. Hopefully I can help deprogram them, and they can worship reality again. They can worship the real world, because this is a very nice property, and if we can get the Mormons to vacate it, we can put something really cool here. Like perhaps we can make this into a church of the flying spaghetti monster, and we can welcome in the homeless all around this area, and we can serve food to them every day, instead of have a very exclusive club that no one is welcome in unless you paid 10% of your income for the last fiscal year. So please do help me in my struggle against these very oppressive cults, these religions, these American religions that are taking the minds of our neighbors, that are overwriting their free will, that are usurping their vote. Perhaps we can break these cults. Perhaps we can make it so that it's just too hard to belong to something so hateful. Thank you again for dropping by my channel, and thank you very much for supporting the spring tour. It's been quite successful. I have a lot of conversations with many people. I'm going to be posting them. Please do stay tuned for that.